Layer 402, British Weapons Case. At the top of the case is a 5-foot-long Brown Bess musket with its butt end at the left. Text reads, "This weapon was carried by both Patriot and British soldiers during the American Revolution and was the most commonly used shoulder arm. The British regulars carried this weapon at the Battle of Cowpens." Just above the trigger, approximately 10 inches to the right, is a 1-inch flat, square British flint with the text, "The musket flint was used to create sparks when it is struck against steel to set off the musket. British flints were black." Above the musket is a hand-forged black metal pin known as a vent pick. Text reads, "Soldiers used a vent pick to clean out their musket's vent, small hole in the lock, to help prevent misfires." At the top right of the display case is a gray, crescent-shaped tin canteen. It is 8 inches tall and 5 inches wide and 2.5 inches deep and is missing the neck and cork on top. Text tells us that this British tin canteen is one of the few surviving canteens in existence of this type. Underneath the musket, moving from left to right, is a musket ball with teeth marks. With no pain-killing drugs, soldiers bit on this musket ball during surgery or amputation. A physician's fleam, a small triangular blade protruding from the bottom of a 3-inch long metal strip. Doctors used fleams to make 1 to 2 inch cuts to drain surface blood from their patients. And a physician's weight, a flat 1/2-inch piece of lead. There were British doctors who stayed to treat the wounded at this battle. They used weights to put on scales to measure the correct amount of medication. This weight was found on the battlefield at Cowpens. Mounted in the center of the display case, underneath the Brown Bess musket, are a series of swords. The first is the Scottish broadsword, with a 30-inch long blade and a metal basket guard. Officers of the Scottish Regiment, the 71st Fraser's Highlanders, carried weapons such as this broadsword for personal defense. Next is the Dragoon saber. It has a 34-inch blade, a metal U-shaped guard, and a leather-wrapped grip. Horse soldiers, or cavalry, were divided into different groups depending on the types of weapons they carried. It was the job of dragoons to be the eyes of the army to prevent surprise attacks. At Cowpens, one unit of British cavalry was the 17th Light Dragoons. And finally, the British Dragoon officer's sword. Circa 1760, this sword has an iron semi-basket hilt. The straight blued blade is engraved and gilded with Scottish emblems. At the right is a 2-inch flat metal cross belt plate. Cartridge boxes were worn on a belt across the left shoulder. Swords or bayonets were worn on a cross belt across the right shoulder. The cross belt plate covered the place where the belts overlapped. At the lower left of the case is a one-piece forged black metal Scottish iron pistol with a 6-inch barrel. Officers of the Scottish Regiment, the 71st Fraser's Highlanders, carried weapons such as this for personal defense. There is also a British Light Dragoon pistol with a curved wooden handle trimmed in brass with a 5-inch long barrel. British cavalry carried pistols in their saddle holsters. Although inaccurate, the weapon could be lethal when fired into a mass of horses and riders. Displayed at the bottom in the center of the case is a British boot heel plate. Soldiers nailed heel plates such as this to their boots, reinforcing the heel. And a steel striker, a curved, handheld, thin steel bar that wrapped around the tops of one's fingers when held in a fist. Soldiers commonly started fires by hitting a flint against a steel striker like this one. You will now be redirected to where you left off in the main message.